Okay, hopefully that goes through. There it is. Okay, so we are recording now. I just want to say good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this month's virtual EAP workshop on the topic of navigating change. My name is Kate, for anybody who doesn't know me. I'm one of the EYL Wellness Coordinators. Our speaker today is going to be Katrina Stokes. She is an EAP therapist who specializes in this topic and has been providing mental health support services to DTE for many years. She will be presenting on this very applicable topic for us today, considering just how much change we have all navigated in this past year, as well as this month being a very different looking back to school time.
Hello.
Hi, Katrina.
Hello, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It sounded like someone was talking at the same time you were, that's why I paused. So thank you all for joining this training. I'm so excited to offer this training to you as we have a discussion. And I'm calling it a discussion for a reason. It's because even though we have the wonderful assistance of technology, I'm going to lean on you all to participate in this training. We're going to use our virtual listening skills and our virtual participation skills, and it's going to be more of an interaction and a conversation between me and you all, so we can explore how we can make it through all these changes that we're all going through around the world, especially considering COVID-19. So let's get into it. Well, when I think about NDIRE, one of the things that she says is that the only thing that is constant in the world is change. And she said, that's why I take life as it comes. So she kind of steals that quote from someone, and that's how she kind of navigates through life. Is she just takes it life as it comes, because we never know what to expect with life. No matter how much we plan things out, we never know what to expect. So I want you to relax and enjoy this training. So during this training, we're going to understand the phases of change, because there are some phases that come along with the change process. We're going to have a conversation and explore some ideas to build a personal plan about opportunities to change and what time and change presents us. And the reason why I said a personal plan of action, because our realities, even though you all may work for DTE, all of your realities are different. We're going to rediscover the importance of managing our own personal stress. Again, it's personal stress because what's stressful for me may not be stressful for you, and so forth. So I'm going to start us with an activity. What I'd like for you to do right now, and I'm going to do it with you, can you cross your arms for me? So now I'd like for you to cross your arms the other way. So what I'd like to ask you, what was that like for you to have someone to tell you to cross your arms, and then once your arms was crossed the way that you chose to cross it, I said, okay, cross it the other way. I just need a couple people to speak up. You said weird. And was that Barry?
That was me. It was just weird because I don't do it that way.
Okay. And so it's weird because you don't do it that way. Thank you so much for that, Barry. Any others? When you were asked to put your arm folding a different way, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it took a while to actually do it. I had to actually do it the normal way once to see if I actually did it a different way the second time.
Okay. All right. And notice how Larry said normal way and different way. Sort of like change. We can be in the midst of doing a project at work, and we're in the groove with the project, whether it's an individual project or a team project, and then a manager, supervisor, or someone authoritative figure may come along and say, you know what, you guys are doing good work, but we're going to have to change things up. The customer wants something different. That's kind of like what we go through with the change process. We can be doing something and things just change for us. And what's so helpful for me as I go around companies and have conversations about change, I can use a common example that everyone around the world is sharing right now, and that's our experiences with COVID-19 and how it's changed our worlds a lot. And I'm not going to say dramatically, I'm going to say a lot. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is success as a professional. Each and every day in our lives presents an opportunity for change, opportunities for us to express gratitude. And when I first started with Henry Ford 8 years ago, one of the former VPs used to say in meetings, we do these things great, and here are some opportunities for improvement. So what I want to help you with from the beginning of this training is how to begin to transform your language to a language that is one that speaks of hope or opportunities for improvement, opposed to doom and gloom. So that's what it's all about, right? We want to be successful and we want to continue to be professional. So some basic mistakes that I want you to think about avoiding. Aim for low stress work setting. Well, I've been working with DTE now for almost 8 years in terms of collaboration, providing trainings, doing some EAP counseling. And one thing that I know, even from looking at this picture, is that some of the positions within DTE are very high stress positions. So you don't want to aim for low stress work, because I know that in some cases, some of the departments are working with gas, some are working with electric, and even the people who are helping over the phone also have stressful circumstances, because they may be trying to connect the customer with the person that's out in the field and making sure that everyone's on the same page. And that can be somewhat stressful. So what you will learn is that not all stress is bad stress. When you think about an athlete, some of them tend to be very stressed when they're participating in a basketball game, for example, but it's a good type of stress. It gets them pumped up and ready to go. So you don't want to also expect someone else to lower your stress, because stressors that we have are typically different. We may have the same circumstances in terms of we're all going through COVID-19 right now, but how it's impacting us can be very different. I may have lost a friend to COVID-19, whereas a colleague may have lost a parent to COVID-19. So you also want to stay away from controlling the uncontrollable. Whenever someone comes to talk to me about any concerns, after I hear them out, of course, the first thing I kind of explore is, let's have a conversation about what you actually have control over and what you don't have control over. So you don't want to make the mistake of thinking that you can change things that you have absolutely no control over. At this point around the world, and I'm going to mention it quite often because it's a common thread for all of us, COVID-19. We have minimal control over COVID-19. So you don't want to pick the wrong battles. I used to work for a wonderful lady who said, I pick and choose my battles. And that's when she was dealing with customers or anything out of her control. She said, you know what? I pick and choose my battles. You want to avoid deciding not to change, because in a lot of cases, change is there and we have to roll with the punches. We can't decide not to change. If you do that, then you'll end up left behind. If it's work related, you may end up without a job. If it's related to having a personal relationship, the person may leave the relationship if you don't want to make adjustments. And you definitely want to stay away from allowing yourself to be a victim. Earlier on in the conversation, I spoke of strength-based. So if you stay in the victim mode, then you can't have room for positive thinking. And not that I'm leading up to you can't be victimized, but you want to think about what you have control over, what you don't have control over, and you want to make sure that you get yourself out of the victim role. So earlier on, I talked about stages of change. We've identified 4 of them: denial, resistance, exploration, and commitment. There's 6 emotional stages of change. Again, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and hope. So I'm going to pause now and ask the question. Has anyone seen most of these stages before? And just a friendly reminder, when you speak, you have to take your mic off of mute.
I think they're the 7 stages of death, or
You're close, very close. I'm going to help you out. Grief. And the reason why I changed it from death to grief is because Kubler-Ross, yes, actually developed them, but it can also deal with just grief overall. It could be grief from losing employment, grief from divorce. So yes, these are definitely very in line with the stages of grief. So we're going to take a closer look at them. And thank you for sharing that.
Katrina, I also see someone had their hand raised. I believe JC, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, that was me. I just couldn't get my mic unmuted, and I was going to say the same thing.
Okay. All right. Same thing by the comparison of the stages of grief.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for that, JC. So when we think about denial, we want to look at 2 different things: what you may feel and what you can do. It talks about the fact that things may seem larger than normal at this stage. You may be in denial as to how much needs to be done. You may feel like change is not happening. I'm going to use our COVID-19 again. There's some people who don't believe that COVID-19 is a big deal, that it's not a problem, as evidenced by colleges, some colleges opening up and some young people deciding to get together and participate in parties, even knowing some of them that they have COVID-19. You may go about your business as usual, as though you're unaware of the change. Well, I'm sure, well, let me ask the question. Have some of you been walking around, you know, the world, the community, and see people perhaps without masks? Has anyone witnessed that?
Well, yes. In grocery stores, or, you know, I've seen them.
Okay. So in the denial phase, you may be downplaying your reactions or your feelings. So what we're asking you to do is to seek information. And if you're the person who don't believe that masks really work, then do your research. Go to credible sources, and I said creditable sources. I like to turn to scholarly articles. And what that is that articles that are peer reviewed, they're written by people who are actually in the field, and also in consideration to the people that are being affected by whatever's going on. And you want to seek information. Avoid rumors. When someone says something to you and you're trying to get information from them, you want to make sure you know where they got the information from. And I'm going to bring up my mother for a second. Hopefully she'll forgive me. But my mother always makes the statement, they said, they said. I'm like, Ma, who are they? And she's like, you know. I said, no, I don't. That's why I'm asking you. And then she, you know, she'll get upset, and then she'll say, well, it was Fox 2 News. They said. I said, okay, then, because depending on who said it, I may not believe it. So you definitely want to make sure that you examine the facts. You want to think about what is constant in your life. And again, what do you have control over? Because even though we have people who are actually going through a hurricane right now in the world, we're all going through COVID-19, there's still some sense of control for something, even if it's just as simple as I have control over being able to sit still and take some deep breaths. Explore and discuss ways in which you can adjust to the change, because to stay fixated in the problem or the concern with this change will not move you forward. And remember, India said in the beginning, the only thing that's constant is the fact that things will change. Ask questions when possible, because sometimes you may receive information, but you need to ask some follow-up questions. I'm wondering, does that happen with you at work now? At DTE, you guys have so many different components and so many different departments and so many different responsibilities. Do you all in your roles find that even when information is given to you, because I know you have a lot of training at DTE as well, do you find yourself needing to ask questions at times?
Pretty much everything that I do, it's you trust, but you also verify. You need to look at another source to make sure it's true.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Thank you. So you want to give yourself some time for the change to sink in as well. That can be with work, that can be with relationships, friendships. Sometimes change will come about and you're like, okay, I use the word, I need to marinate on this for a while. It is definitely normal to, even for something that's a good change. And I know someone just in the group just got married very recently, and another group member said, how is it so far? It's like, you just got to give things time to sink in and ask those crucial questions. So when we think about resistance, you want to think about, again, what you may experience and what you can do about it. You may have feelings of resentment. Some people, and I believe you all are in the group too, are actually working from home right now. My position is one that typically or traditionally was seeing clients face to face, but of course, because of our wonderful friend COVID-19, we're now doing sessions virtually. So there's some people who have feelings of resentment because of that, because working from home has created some problems for them. So what you can do about that is you can listen to others who are having positive experiences to see if there's some adjustments you can make so that you can have a positive experience. Under resistance, what you may experience as well will be complaining, overreacting to the situation, having some sort of doubt or fear, questioning whether if the change was right or not. I know my leader questions all the time whether it's the right decision for us to work from home. You can have feelings of uncertainty because we're going through times where we just don't have the answers for everything. At this time, you may find yourself questioning trust in your leadership and or your company. And because we're talking about work-life balance, when you think about your personal life, you may be questioning who's ever making a decision at home. Even if that person is you making the decisions, you may be second guessing yourself, and it may bring on feelings of anger. So here are some of the things you can do about it. We already talked about listen, listen, listen. You don't want to judge. Make sure your feelings are validated. Think about things that's happened in the past when there's a history of the concern you're trying to work through or the change you're trying to work through, because some of the ways that the concerns were solved may actually give you some evidence of how to move forward on what's currently going on. Offer empathy, empathize. You want to have a discussion and think about expectations, because sometimes you need to know what you're expecting, because sometimes what you're expecting is not in line with the goal or the change. So it's a good idea to have a conversation about that to make sure you're on the same page. And this one I love, and my manager accuses me of doing this very well. Take good care of yourself. It's very important as you're going through changes is to know what makes you feel good. Because if you know what makes you feel good, there's an opportunity when you're going through a stressful change for you to balance that with some pleasure things in your life. And I always have to give a plug in. You want to consider using your EAP benefit. DTE has provided you with the 5-session model for individualized counseling for you or anyone else that resides in your home that's confidential and free of charge. I'll talk more about that at the end of the training. You want to find ways to let go or say goodbye to the past. And I like to add, learn how to get through, because there's some changes that happen in life that you can't let go, but certainly you can learn how to get through and to cope. In the exploration phase, what you can expect and what you can do. You're going to look to solve problems, signs of innovations, discuss solutions. You want to stay in a strength-based, solution focus, and actually EAP services offers strength-based, solution-focused way to get through concerns. What you can do is when there's an opportunity, get involved in the process. Whenever there's changes that are going through within your department or your organization, your household, see what role you can play. Even if the final decision doesn't lie with you, you can speak up and say, I'd like to be a part of that conversation if possible, and participate in the dialogue. You want to display positive actions. You don't want to be a naysayer. It's okay to bring up concerns, but my suggestion is always when you bring up concerns, make sure that you have some sort of idea of what solution you think would be a great idea, even if it's something that's not polished out at the moment. I remember being in a meeting with my manager and my VP, and they were like, well, what do you think? And I said, I don't know. And I said, you know what? That's not true. I do have some thoughts about it. I just don't have a full idea of how I would like to activate those thoughts. So I shared it with them, and they actually helped me through that. So you want to make sure that you get involved. Confirm expectations, discuss your strengths and what you have to offer. And this is a bonus one. Assist coworkers with adjusting to the change. I know that DTE, you all are coworkers, but in many cases, you're more like family members, and in some cases, you are family members. So you want to assist each other and help each other get through any change that you may be going through. And that could be a work-related change, or in some cases, a personal change. Commitment's a big one. You want to have feelings of hope. You want to trust. That's very important. You want to be aligned with whatever goals that are in place or changes that are occurring. And what you can do is acknowledge and accomplishments. Small celebrations are helpful. For example, some organizations and departments celebrate things like birthdays of team members, or if one of the team members become a parent or become married, there's different opportunities to celebrate. Personal things that we go through, or work related. If there was a project that you all worked on and you made it through the project successfully, that may be something to be acknowledged. So you want to make sure that you're celebrating your contributions to change. Evaluate the change process and offer improvement as necessary. You know, one of my favorite sayings is opportunities for improvement. Whether the project was successful, there's always an opportunity to evaluate to make sure if there's any tweaks that may be necessary if you were to go through the process again. So another activity, not to keep you all busy, but I want to give you all a chance to interact. I'm hoping that you all are in a position where you have a piece of paper. Would that be correct? Can everybody just say yes for me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you. So this is very simple. I'd like for you to 10 times sign your name, your full name 10 times, just 1 through 10, and sign your name by all 10 for me. And I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, so now what I'd like for you to do is 1 through 10 as well, but this time I'd like for you to do your signature using the opposite hand. Using the opposite hand. I'd like for you to do your signature for me using the opposite hand. And I'll give you a minute for that as well. Someone has a baby in the background.
Oh, that's me, my little guard dog. I don't know if these are supposed to be legible, Katrina, but.
Okay, nope, it's perfectly fine. Okay, so we're at a minute. So now can someone volunteer to share their experiences with switching to the opposite hand, what that was like for them?
Horrible. My handwriting is bad enough with my right hand. Get to my left hand, it's scratch.
Okay.
it's just uncomfortable because that's why you're right-handed and left-handed.
Yes.
You're used to it, unless you're, you know, the Cleveland Indians and they have 5 switch hitters. In
Yes.
which case,
I only got half the amount done.
Yeah, I was gonna say it took a lot longer. I didn't even get through all 10 in the same amount of time.
Okay, so Mary said that change of switching to the opposite hand caused her to produce slower. Barry said that it was uncomfortable, awkward. Anyone else?
My middle initial is J. I was writing F's instead of J's, so I was writing letters backwards.
So, okay, Larry's basically describing some confusion, right? And
Yep.
writing letters different than how they should appear. So sometimes that's what it's like. And thank you all for participating. Sometimes we have to go through changes that are uncomfortable for us. It's out of place for us. It makes us feel awkward. Sometimes it'll even make us do things that we don't normally do. I'll share a personal example. I usually have I'm crisis response coordinator for Henry Ford. So I schedule meetings with my team, and I had a meeting scheduled for today, but because it's been so busy, I forgot to invite the team. So I can't have a meeting today. So whenever we go through changes, which the change is more work because of COVID-19, so it kind of can have you somewhat off point. So that's a normal reaction. So part of this training, we're going to get into how do we deal with that? How do we deal with these changes so we can have some normality? So thank you all for participating in that activity. So what we want to do is we want to look in the mirror first. I can't take others beyond where I am as a leader. And so when you think of leader, don't just think of leader as in terms of leader in your position at work. You may be the leader in your household. You may be the person that with your group of friends, you're the one who's the leader. So you don't have to just think about work. And that was by Sasser, of course. So we want to think of 10 principles. We want to be in the moment. We want to be authentic and humanistic. Volunteer discretionary effort. We want to model high performance. Respect and leverage separate realities. I'm going to pause at this one. What do you all think about the one, respect and leverage separate realities?
Is that like respecting people's individual characteristics and how they see the world?
Yes, and individual things that they're going through. Was that Kathleen?
It's Kate.
Hey, yes, that's correct. For example, earlier I spoke of working from home and how for some people it's like, it's fine, it's not a problem. But other people, it poses a problem because perhaps you don't have your own separate space. So that would be someone else's different reality. So you want to respect that it's different for everyone. You want to be curious versus judgmental. I love this one too. Anyone want to speak to why it's important to be curious versus judgmental?
Katrina, I did want to let you know we had one question in the chat. JC was asking if you could give a little more detail on number 3.
Number 3, yes, thank you for that. Volunteer discretionary effort. Oh my goodness. Well, an example I would have for that one is if you know something to be true and you're in a meeting and your leader may have articulated something that's not true, you want to use discretionary effort before you say something to him or her. For example, you may not want to say openly in a meeting, I'm going to throw a name out there. Dave, what you just said wasn't correct. The facts are da 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 da. It may be appropriate to say, Dave, can I chat with you for a moment and then tell them sidebar, or wait until after the meeting and say, hey, you know, I noticed you said A, B, and C in the meeting, but actually, and you show them the evidence because you may need to show evidence. Actually, it should have been this way. I just thought you might want to know that. And then that gives that person an opportunity to go back and correct, whether it's through an email or another meeting. But you don't want to put someone, I don't want to use slang, but I'm thinking Front Street is what I'm really thinking. You don't want to embarrass anyone, or you don't want to upstage anyone. Does that help? Is that a good example for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. So we talked about being curious versus judgmental. Why do we think that that's important to be curious versus judgmental?
I would say that because when you make a judgment about something, it doesn't leave you open to other possibilities.
Yes, that's great. That's great, JC. That's great. When I meet clients for the first time, obviously when someone's coming to see me or couples, families, there's a concern that they're going through. So if when they tell me what their concern is, if I look at them a certain way or if I make comments about you shouldn't have done that, then it wouldn't leave any room for them to want to speak to me anymore. And they may not want to be open, therefore I can't help them. So instead, I'm curious about what they're explaining to me. So as I'm asking questions that are inquisitive versus judgmental. So, and we spoke about looking in the mirror first, have courageous conversations. We do this with our leaders. We do this with people that we care about sometimes when we're having difficulties. You want to be timely and have specific expectations and feedback. Teach, coach, and mentor. It's no good to have information that someone needs to know, but not be willing to teach them about it or coach them or be a mentor to them. So those are 10 principles. So there are 5 dimensions of leading change because, again, you can be a leader without being an official title of leader. So as a team member, you may want to model the change. If something that's going on within the department is undesirable, instead of maybe complaining about it, just may want to set an example. And I'm going to use an example of a call center. You may have a colleague that you hear through the cubicle, pre-COVID, of course, maybe becoming curt with a customer, and opposed to going over to their cubicle and say, you shouldn't talk to them that way. You may wait until they're done with the call and then later say, you know, wow, that seemed like a very difficult call. I have difficult calls sometimes. The next time I have one, would you like for me to wave you over and maybe you can pipe in or listen and I can kind of role model to you how I handle a difficult call, because sometimes we do get difficult calls. So you want to be communicating about the change. Whenever there's information that's available, whomever may have the information, you want to make sure you communicate that to all parties that are interested. And that's not just at work, but that's also in your personal life. You want to involve others in the change. If you're the smartest person in your group, you know what that means? You need a new group. So you want to make sure you get feedback from others, even if the ultimate decision lies with you. You make sure that you kind of check in with others. Helping others break from the past. It's okay to remember past experiences, but always make it an effort to, if you're thinking about a past experience, make sure you're using it to spring you forward so that you can get through your current situation. And the goal is to create a supportive learning environment. One of the things I admire about DTE is that your organization have opportunities like this to have discussions about change, stress. So you want to make sure that the environment is supportive and you're able to learn. Any thoughts about this slide before I move on? Okay. So we've talked about COVID-19. All around the world, it's recommended that we wear face masks to protect ourselves. Now, obviously, I'm in the office by myself doing this presentation, so I'm not wearing a face mask. So that's a big change that has impacted everyone. Any conversation about how COVID-19 has impacted your lives, whether it's your personal life or work life? Anyone want to share any examples of how it's had some, caused some changes for you and how you've adjusted?
Well, now I'm working, well, it's been 6 months, hasn't it? Since, working from home, in the beginning it was tough because I had my daughter who's now in college, so there's my one change.
Wow.
But the change is that she was also home trying to do her work because, and it was tough that they realizing that I was at home. So they would just come in at any time. I actually made a sign, and I always joke that there's a sign up, but they don't read it. But
yeah,
I think what's happened now is it's gotten a little bit better. I mean, I only have my daughter's at school, but it. I think I was telling my mom that I think I've gotten used to just being at home. I mean, I'd like to be in the office periodically, but I've gotten used to being at home. Commuting takes 2 minutes, that type of stuff. So,
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Barry. So when you think back, because obviously that was a big change for those of us who are working from home now, what were some of the things, and I heard you when you said you put a sign on the door and you said, but they didn't read it. What are some of the things that's helped you to get through these 6 months? Because it sounds like you're kind of settled into working from home. So what are some of the things to help you to get through the change, that change?
well, I also started to sort of made my office my own, as my wife calls it, my man cave. So I've put up banners or put up sports stuff or I've sort of made it my own space for myself. So I think that's what's made it easier. So I've made it like my office with my stuff. So.
Okay. And that speaks to what I spoke about in the slides earlier when I said be a part of the change. So you started to take some ownership, and you and your wife are calling it your man cave, and you put up some sports information, something that was personal to you. Once you made those changes, tell me about the experience of how that helped you or did not help you through the change process.
Well, I think it's probably helped me because now I'm used to my space. I've gotten it so that I have 2 computers. I've been able to set it up so they can both work, without having to switch things around. And it's just, I've gotten into a new routine. When I get up, I don't have to get into a car anymore. Even though I used to joke to people, I just go around the block just so I feel it. I go from the kitchen and I go to work, but I've gotten into a certain rhythm, and I think that's what's gotten things going with me. So that's what's been the real change. Is that in the beginning it was like, when am I going back? This is getting painful too. Well, we'll get back when we get back. So
thank you for sharing
go from there.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Is there anyone else on the line that would like to share their experience and the changes that they're actually going through? And it doesn't have to be related to COVID-19, but it can be. Or it could be some changes that you've experienced while working at DTE, or some changes within your household. Anyone else want to give an example of changes that you may have gone through?
I used something that you mentioned earlier, and it's about being grateful. When I initially started working from home, it was good for a while, and then I really started missing people. And I think one of the things that has gotten me through this adjustment is just feeling grateful that I still have a job and I can still work from home. And, I just count my blessings, like Barry mentioned, I don't have to commute to work anymore. I have more time, but I think that's one thing that got me through. It was just trying to count my blessings that I'm still able to work from home and keep my job.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that, Sue. So it also ties into gratitude, and also think about what you have control over. And the gratitude part of it, being grateful that we still have a job, because even here within the system, there were several people who were furloughed. So it's getting back to the simple things. Okay, thank you all for sharing. So I know that we have 30 people that are on the line at this point. I'm wondering, did anyone have to readjust? And I know Barry spoke of this earlier, with having children that need to be either homeschooled, or either thoughts of how they're going to exist in school with COVID-19, for those who are the kids are actually going away to school. What are some of those experiences? Because there's a resource guide that has been provided to you all, that we sent DTE, I want to say probably over a month ago, maybe even further back, but it's also attached to this meeting. So it's available to you again. It's a 41-page document and it's titled Resuming School During COVID-19. And it's a research guide for parents. And it helps parents to navigate working and parenting at the same time, which those who are doing that, my applause to you, because it's very difficult to host a meeting such as this one and perhaps have a kid that needs help with math. Eureka Math, whoever thought of that one. Yes, the new math. That's very difficult. Yes, Eureka Math is the new math. So networking with other parents may be helpful to you to find out how, because some parents may be balancing it a little bit better. Use your employee assistance program. And the reason why I mention employee assistance program is if you speak with us individually, we can be creative with you in helping you find solutions for your individual lives. Things that you may be experiencing during the COVID-19 and having children who are still in school. So I have another activity for you, and I promise this is the last one. This is a drawing activity. So I just need you to, nothing elaborate. I just need you to draw me a picture of a house, just a picture of a house. And I'm going to give you about a half a minute to actually work on that. Oh, you know what, guys? I'm so sorry. That shouldn't have been a house. That shouldn't have been a house. You know what? Instead, can you draw me a picture of a boat? And I'll start the half a minute over again. A picture of a boat. Oh, please don't hate me. Can we change? Okay, this is the last change. Can we change it to a castle? That's simple. Everybody knows about castles from when we were young, very young. A picture of a castle. And I'll start the time over again, I promise. Go ahead. Okay, so can we pause for a second? Can anyone share what their experience was like doing that exercise? Don't hold any punches. Let me know what your experience was like.
It's sort of like life. You get somebody asks you to do one thing and then they change their mind. They want to do it another way, something else. You finally get done with something. They say, "Oh nope, I want it done again." After the third, if you had done this the fourth time, you might have heard stuff.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Thank you, Barry. So, okay, what was others' experience? Thank you for sharing, Barry. Give me some other experience and what it was like to make those changes.
My experience was actually very good because I had a 3-dimensional house that I turned into a houseboat, and then I just added all the castle stuff to it, so I didn't have to change my picture to start over.
So you turned it into a cabin cruiser.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Larry. Anyone else wanted? So the difference between Barry and Larry actually, for him, it was a change, but it was smoother for him because he was able to take that house and just change it into the boat. So he adapted a little bit easier than Barry did. Anyone else want to share what their experience was like to be in the middle of a project, not in the middle of a project, having to stop, get redirected, then redirected because of a change again?
I think my thought was kind of like, oh, well, I'll do it, but I don't know how good it's going to be.
Okay, so it elicits some doubt. So even though you're willing to participate, you were kind of like, oh, okay, I don't know how it's going to turn out now. So let me ask you a question. Since I was leading the activity, how did you all begin to view me as I was making the change, asking you to change? What thoughts were you having about me? Don't hold back. Tell me what you were thinking. Oh, this is a nice crowd. You ought to want to give me honesty. What were you thinking when I changed 3 times on you?
after the second change, I said, oh, tricky. She's doing this on purpose.
Okay.
Since this is about change.
Okay. All right. So yes, I did do the changes on purpose, which is uncomfortable for me because I'm kind of OCD when it comes to this kind of stuff. But yes, I wanted you all to have the experience of what it may be like to keep getting redirected once you're invested in something. We all were invested in our lives pre-COVID-19, and now we have this change of having to not be able to be around our parents if they are a certain age or if they have certain medical concerns. They're high risk. High risk is probably the best word to use. We've had to make adjustments of, instead of working in our office that we may have decorated and it may be very comfortable for us, to working from home, and we don't have an office space at home. We may have just a 2-bedroom condo. So, or we may have children at home that when you're at home, they think that that's their time and they want to have conversations with you, but you have a Skype meeting or a team meeting that you need to be on in the next 5 minutes, and they want to share a story with you that's more like 10 minutes. So that's what we're experiencing with the change that we're going through in today's world. So I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. I studied under Dr. Albert Ellis, who's now deceased, and his theory was rational emotive therapy. And what he helped you to do is look at the reality of what you're going through and help you to understand it's how you react to the reality that makes the difference. It's not necessary that you have to make a change, it's how you react to the fact that you have to make a change. The fact that we have to wear these masks, are you going to be bummed about it, or are you just going to be decorative and get one with glitter like I did? Or I have a colleague who have a leopard one to match her leopard shirt. Are you just going to have fun with it? And so it's what you, with you, when you are in charge, we are in charge of our attitudes, is basically what Charles Swindoll said. So we have control of our attitude. Remember earlier in the conversation, I talked about, think about what you have control over and what you don't have control over. Well, unless there's some medical condition going on, we definitely have control over our attitude about the change or situation. So in closing, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not darkness, that frightens us. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And that was from, of course, Nelson Mandela. So I'm wondering, do you all have any questions, comments, concerns at this time? The floor is open. And thank you all for your participation. So I don't see any questions at this point. So what I want to do is take these last few minutes and have a conversation with you about the materials that are available to you. This PowerPoint presentation is going to be available to you in the chat box. Also, a brochure for the Employee Assistance Program is also made available to you in the chat box as well. If you have any additional follow-up questions that you think about after this training, Kate, they can contact the EAP department. You know how to connect me with them as well. I just wanted to go over EAP with them a little bit. EAP is a solution-focused model that provides free counseling services to you because of DTE has already paid for them to help you deal with anything to get in the way of work-life balance. Although it's covered by DTE, we do not report back to them that you've utilized services. You're just a number to them in terms of productivity. So we don't let them know that you've come in for services without a release of information. Services are provided by licensed professional counselors, licensed social workers, and limited licensed psychologists. And as you've participated today, we offer trainings, we respond to critical incidents that happen within your organization. Am I leaving out anything, Kate? Anything else you want me to add, or?
I was just going to say, I think you covered everything, and all those documents are in the chat. I got them in there while you were speaking. And I also wanted to say, of course, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
You're welcome.
And thank you to everybody for attending. the last thing that I've dropped in the chat is a feedback survey. So it's just a 2-minute survey that if you have any feedback about today's session or any ideas for future topics, you can go ahead and take that survey and give us a little feedback. We would really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I'll hang behind because we have about 10 more minutes. I'll hang behind just in case someone wants to ask a question or something like that. I can do that as well.
Sounds good. I can stay around too, just in case.
All right.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.